So, I can't believe I'm saying this, guys, but after 9 years, you're finally looking at a new ARMA game. But it's not ARMA 4. So, the question is then, what the hell is this game? What is ARMA Reforger? Well, guys, this is BillyEatWorld again, and I guess let's find out. Alright guys, how you going? Welcome to the video, and like I said, today we are taking a first look at this random game called ARMA Reforger. But just before we do that though, I just want to say a big thank you to Bohemia Interactive for letting me try it out ahead of time, and thank you for letting me tell them what I thought of it. Now, also I should mention that I've got 3 Steam codes for this game to give away, so if you do want a chance to win one of those for free, all you've got to do is subscribe and leave a comment on this video. It doesn't matter what it's about, just as long as you leave one. And I'll be announcing the winners over on my Discord server in about a week's time. So as always, check out the details in the description and good luck. All right, so what the hell is this game? And probably more importantly, and probably the question you guys are asking, why are we not getting ARMA 4 right now? And look, I don't want to get too technical, but basically the simple answer is ARMA has finally made the jump from the Real Virtuality engine, and it's now running on the Infusion engine. And that means that the devs can do lots of new things that weren't possible before. And that's going to be massively a shock to the community if they don't talk to the community about those changes first. So here's what they've done. Basically, they've launched a smaller game, which is kind of like ARMA 4, but allows the community to test out the new features and see what they think. And then what they're going to do is they're going to use this game and the feedback they get from it to help build ARMA 4 the way that we want it. Now, in saying that though, Reforger is still actually a full game on its own. It's actually a return to the roots of the franchise, back to Operation Flashpoint Cold War Crisis 21 years ago. And if you've never played that, well, basically in a nutshell, it was set in 1985, and it was pretty much the US and the Soviets fighting on the fictional islands of Malden and Everon. Now, we actually did get a remake of Malden in ARMA 3, but this time in Reforger, it looks like we're going to be returning to the other island, Everon, except that this time it's going to be apparently set in 1989, so 4 years from the events of the first game. And also, and this is the biggest thing, and I probably should have said this already, the main thing that's returning from the original game is that ARMA is coming back to console. I can't even believe that I'm saying this. Now, obviously, that in itself is massive, and we're going to talk about that a bit more, but what else makes Reforger different from the previous games? And well, obviously, the main thing that you're going to notice is the graphics are really schmick now. They're not on par with games like Battlefield, but they're definitely a lot better than ARMA 3, right? Not just that, but the character movement is a lot smoother than it used to be, and the vehicle mechanics are completely different as well. You'll notice me flipping Jeeps left, right, and center in this video. And so in a nutshell, ARMA 3 isn't just that clunky milsim game anymore. I really think that by the time ARMA 4 comes out, it could be just as slick as any other FPS game. Also, another big thing I've got to mention is that ARMA is finally becoming more physical. For example, the old scroll wheel action menu is gone, and now you directly interact with objects in the 3D world. And look, the action menu is still technically kind of there, but rather than being at the top left of your screen all the time, the actual options actually appear next to the object when you're interacting with it. Also, and we kind of saw this in the Prairie Fire DLC for ARMA 3, but it looks like the devs are starting to add in more realistic animations. For example, you've actually got to start a car before you can drive it now, and your character actually changes the gears as well. And not just that, but there's a lot of things that used to be not animated in-game that now are, like, for example, opening your map or looking at your compass. And the other thing is that other players can see when you're doing those things, which is pretty cool. Now, speaking of gear, you guys probably want to know what's going on with the inventory system, because as you can see, that's massively different now as well. The main difference is that everything is actually laid out visually now, meaning you can see what's in all the containers at the same time, and you can manipulate those items and drag them around however you like. Now, another big difference is the uniform has actually been separated into different parts. And apparently also, and I didn't really play with this too much, but you can actually reconfigure your vest carrier as well. Like, for example, taking parts off and adding different parts to it. So look, it's safe to say that there's way more flexibility in ARMA Reforger when it comes to the inventory than there ever was in ARMA 3. And most importantly, it seems like it's a lot easier to use. Also, I should point out, if you haven't already realized from this gameplay, that players aren't actually limited to just one primary weapon anymore. Basically, you've got a slot in your hands, and you've also got a slot for the weapon on your sling. And that doesn't necessarily need to be a launcher. So the dream of double 50 cal sniper rifle is alive and well, guys. Also, just a little point, but an interesting one. Weapons and vehicles now work like all of your other containers. When you want to equip attachments, you actually pretty much drag them onto the weapon as if it's like a backpack. And not just that, but vehicle weapons actually now work like regular weapons as well. You actually have to physically load up spare ammo into the vehicle's inventory space for it to be able to use that. Now, there's mods that have done that in the past, but I think this is the first time we're seeing it in a vanilla ARMA game. Now, so far, we've only just scratched the surface, but look, one thing I really want to spend some time on are the new game modes. And first up, we've got a mode called Game Master, which I think anyone who's played ARMA before is going to instantly recognize as Zeus mode. Now, if you've got no idea what Zeus is, well, it's kind of like D&D. One player has the ability to set up engagements and spawn in enemies with a real-time mission editor, and basically the other players, they're not really playing against the Zeus. The Zeus is just there to create a fun experience for everyone. It's kind of like creating a mission, except you're doing it on the fly. Now, if you're someone that's into PvP, well, there's good news for you as well. Because in my opinion, one thing that ARMA has always lacked is an official PvP mode that is like a staple of the franchise. Something kind of like Conquest is in Battlefield games. And in Reforger, well, I think the devs are trying to have a really good crack at creating that mode, and it's called Conflict, which is a mode that pits two teams against each other on the entire map, and the goal is to capture the enemy's HQ. Basically, the simple idea of the game mode is you need to increase your team's radio range by capturing outposts, and at each outpost you capture, you can construct buildings using supplies that you transport up from your HQ. And as you can see, the scale of this is huge. It's going to be way bigger than even the biggest tactical shooter games like Squad and Hell Let Loose. So if you're into large-scale PvP game modes, this could be a real good choice for you. Now, there's actually a lot more that I want to say about Conflict, but we were actually only playing in small groups in the playtests, and so I'm actually going to come back and do a full video on it once I've actually tried it out a few times in full servers. But probably the more important topic that I want to get into today is actually the topic of modding, because as you probably know, in ARMA 3, most of the popular game modes weren't official modes. They were community-made modes. And the good news is that Reforger has been built from the ground up to be friendly to modders. There isn't actually a 3D editor, which kind of sucks, but as you can see here, there's a bunch of workbench tools. So community modders can basically get started straight away, and presumably anything that they create in this game should be compatible with ARMA 4 later on down the track as well. The good news is, as well, as it seems like the devs have been pinching ideas from some of the more popular mods for ARMA 3, because there's a few features that are suspiciously similar to some old mods. Like, for example, the VoIP system now actually uses radio frequencies, which is a lot like TFAR, and your player can jump and climb stuff now, so you won't need enhanced movement in Reforger either. Once again, though, this game is supposed to be work in progress, right? The whole idea is to take community ideas in Reforger and then incorporate them into ARMA 4 down the line. So I'm actually really keen to see what the modding community does come up with in this game, and maybe the devs will actually take some of those things and make them vanilla features. You got to remember that now the franchise is back on console, it's going to be harder to rely on mods for basic functionality like we have for so long in ARMA 3. Now look, like I said, I've only just scratched the surface of this game. There's a lot more we could talk about, but I also don't want this to be a 20-minute video. So let's get on to what I thought of the game. And I've got to say, my opinion was kind of mixed. At first, it was actually pretty jarring because I've just got so many hours in Arma 3 now that Reforger just felt completely different. The first few hours kind of didn't even feel like I was playing an Arma game at all, but the deeper that I dug, I started to realize that a lot of stuff from Arma 3 was there. It was just packaged in a different way. And that's probably got a lot to do with the fact that this game has now got to run on console. It's got to be streamlined to play with a controller. And if you're a PC player and you're used to 10,000 keybinds, well, that's not the experience you're going to get in this game. Also, another thing I was really looking for was performance. And all in all, I'd have to say it was actually pretty good. I was running on ultra settings most of the time, and my frames were pretty smooth throughout most of my play sessions, except for occasional bugs where the frames would drop, usually when you're alt-tabbing or something like that. And look, speaking of bugs, I'm not going to gloss over it. There were a lot, and there probably will be at launch, but you've got to remember that this is an early access game that's designed to pave the way for another game. And I'm old enough to remember what games like Squad were like at launch, and this feels way better than that. So I reckon with enough time, just like Squad, it'll come good, and hopefully Arma 4 will be even better. Here's a couple of final criticisms though. According to the devs, there aren't any plans to add a campaign to this game, which is a really big shame because I think single player has always been a strong point of this franchise. But look, you never know, someone in the community will probably knock one up or recreate the original campaign or something like that. So look, just watch this space. I reckon something will happen before Arma 4, that's for sure. What really sucks though is, like I said before, the devs aren't planning for Eden to come to Reforger. So that's going to gatekeep a lot of potential mission builders from this game. And that includes me. Some of you guys probably know that I'm actually the creator of a dynamic game mode for Arma 3 called Direct Action. And look, without the 3D editor, I don't think I'm going to be able to bring that to Reforger. All in all though, even with those criticisms, I still think Reforger was a pretty decent experience. I can see myself putting in at least 100 hours maybe with the current content, and look, hopefully mods extend that even further. But let's be realistic, this isn't gonna replace Arma 3, and if you go in with that expectation, you're gonna have a bad time. This is just the road that they're paving for Arma 4. So the long and the short of it is, if you're a fan of the Arma franchise, I'd say you're probably safe to pick this one up. You're probably going to have a good time. And if you do, make sure you let the devs know what you think. But if you're someone who's never played Arma before, I'd say maybe hang back and watch this space. The game you probably really want to get into is Arma 4, and hopefully that shouldn't be too much further away. But anyway, guys, that's just about it. If you like this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Join the Discord community in the description down below. And as always, see you later and have a good one.